to silence all those who silenced me.
Audrey Elizabeth Hale was born on March 24, 1995, to Ronald and Norma Hale. She was the oldest of two children, who were just 3 years apart. As siblings, they appeared to be close. Audrey was a quiet and pensive child. She would eventually be diagnosed with autism, but was considered high-functioning. She loved animals, and her art often combined and blended animals in her work. Audrey was brought up in a strict, middle-class Christian family with a lot of exposure to religion. She started school at the Covenant Presbyterian School through 6th grade and continued her education at Crestwell Prep for 7th and 8th grade. Although she played basketball in middle school, she didn't get much playing time there, but she seems to have truly bonded with the girls on the team, as their impact would be long-lasting for Audrey. Her coach would describe her as a bench warmer who would only play if the team was really winning or really losing. She attended high school at Nashville School of the Arts. She was recognized as most athletic and was part of the state champion girls 400-meter relay track team for MLK. The Nashville School of the Arts didn't have a track team, and girls from the school were able to try out for the MLK team, and she made it. She went on to graduate from Nassau College of Art and Design in 2022, becoming a graphic designer. Her LinkedIn profile would describe her as a freelance graphic designer, which most likely indicated that she was not permanently employed as a graphic designer at the time of her death. Audrey won awards in college to include Most Improved and Class Participation. Her online portfolio contained images that she had created. One image contained the phrase,
"To be a kid, forever and ever."
Brian Edwards, a former vice president of Nassau College, would later describe Audrey as
the sweetest little thing.
Audrey lost two of her basketball teammates, girls she considered to be friends. The specific death of Sydney Sims would be particularly impactful. A former teacher, Maria Colamy, would later state,
"The only thing I would see her post about was this girl, Sydney,"
referencing Audrey's social media posts. Maria went on to say,
"From what I saw on her social media, she was really suffering."
Maria Colamy taught Audrey for 2 semesters in 2017 at Nassau College.
It's been hard, but it's also been an amazing experience when it comes to developing my creative talents and growing as an artist.
But people who knew them would say the relationship was one-sided. Audrey admired and looked up to Sydney Sims and considered her a friend. But there's no evidence that Sydney and Audrey even had a relationship. Was she delusional? Another middle school basketball teammate, Mia Phillips, would report that Audrey appeared to stalk her when the two girls separated and went to different high schools. Audrey had discovered Mia's mailing address somehow and mailed her some middle school basketball memorabilia. Mia would find the sweet gesture discomforting, as she didn't quite know how Audrey had gotten her address. She would also show up later to a birthday party, uninvited, where several of her middle school teammates were in attendance. It made everyone uncomfortable that she was there. She even pretended to be drunk. After Sydney's passing, Audrey had done something similar, showing up at a family memorial painting uninvited with no one knowing how she found out about the event, and making everyone feel extremely uncomfortable with her presence. Audrey's former teacher at Nassau College thought she could make a living designing children's books. Her art was described as whimsical and childlike. She was confident but not boastful and always professional. She didn't like her time at the Christian school, and she had referenced it on more than a few occasions. She hated having been sent there. Born female, she had just recently taken to identifying as a male on social media, referring to herself now as Aiden, a transgender male. Could this have been some sort of tension? Based on her background, her family was not likely to be supportive of her lifestyle. On March 2nd, 2023, approximately 3 weeks before Audrey's attack on the Presbyterian School, Bill Lee, who was the governor of Tennessee at the time, approved a new law that prohibits gender-affirming health care for children who identify as transgender or non-binary. The new law prohibits the use of medications such as hormone treatments and puberty blockers, which are commonly used to treat gender dysphoria in young people. Additionally, surgeries that were previously infrequent in Tennessee are now also prohibited under this new health law. It is most likely that the law did not sit well with Audrey at all, as she considered herself to be transgender. Audrey would buy her first firearm a year prior to the shooting. Her mom, Norma Hale, was an advocate for keeping guns out of schools. Norma often posting things about this on her social media. In 2017, Audrey's mom posted a photograph of her college grading slip online, recognizing how proud she was, stating,
So proud of Audrey. Her art professor at Nassau College of Art recommended her latest project be submitted in the Addies.
Audrey would have been 22 years old at the time. In 2019, Audrey's mom posted a photograph of the inside of a devotional book that said, "Found this in a devotional book I loaned Audrey," with a heart. The book said, "I heart God." Audrey would have been 24 years old at this point. Was her mother maybe searching for the old Audrey? How would these posts have affected Audrey as she was transitioning and questioning her sexuality in a household that potentially looked down on her lifestyle? Did Norma maybe want the old Audrey back? Audrey had been seeing a therapist for an unspecified emotional disorder. March 27th, 2023 would change everything. It was a little chilly in Nashville, Tennessee on the morning of March 27th, 2023. March was Women's History Month, and March 27th was also World Theater Day. Were these thoughts in Audrey's mind at the time? Was this part of her mindset? The city had been preparing for the 31st annual Tin Pan South Songwriters Festival that was kicking off the following day and continuing through April 1st, with close to 200 performers from around the country representing all genres. Audrey Hale, however, awoke with a different mission that morning. She had been carefully planning something big for months, but her feelings, those had been brewing for years. The 28-year-old was still living at home and working as a freelance graphic designer and a part-time grocery delivery driver. Was Audrey feeling lost or unaccomplished? Was she disappointed with her life and how things were playing out for her? Some people would say that over the last couple weeks, she was posting very depressing statements on social media. On this fateful morning, Audrey woke up laser-focused. She threw on a white t-shirt, some camouflage pants, and a red baseball cap. Then she took inventory of the weapons and ammunition she had spent a considerable amount of time, a couple years, stockpiling. She had studied her targets with great detail and had maps with points of entry and exits, opting for the easiest target first, the private school she hated, where she was forced to attend as a young girl till the 6th grade. The Covenant Presbyterian School. She put everything she needed in a red duffel bag, cleverly matching her hat, and wrote a suicide note, slipping it under her laptop that sat on her desk in her room. She left the house, passing her mom on the way out, who questioned her about the bag. She really just blew that off like she was silly for asking and headed out. Her mom didn't think anything was amiss. As Audrey approached the school, she circled the building, likely selecting the most appropriate entry. Surveillance footage would later identify her Honda Fit. It was the same car she used to deliver groceries in. She could have been delivering groceries for all anyone knew. Her focus was intentional, and her thoughts most likely feelings of failure. Audrey's social media read, "One day, this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen." Audrey's existence manifested itself in admiration of others like Sydney, and she took her last moments to send an Instagram message to a childhood friend, Adriana Patton, a radio host around 9:57 a.m. So basically, that post on here about you, that was basically a suicide note. I'm planning to die today. This is not a joke, in all caps. You'll probably hear about me on the news after I die. This is my last goodbye. I love you, with the beating heart emoji. See you again in another life. Signed, Audrey, in parentheses, Aiden. Her friend responds to her, Audrey, you have so much to live for. I pray that God keeps you and covers you. Audrey responds, I know, but I don't want to live. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to upset you or get attention. I just need to die. I wanted to tell you first because you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen and known all my life. Just before climbing out of the car and walking towards the glass doors to the school. At 10:14 a.m., Adriana called 911. She was transferred to the Nashville non-emergency police line, where she was left on hold for 7 minutes. A police officer would arrive to take her report at 3:29 p.m. What no one knew at the time was that 13 minutes after dialing 911, Audrey was dead. Audrey knew the doors to the school would be locked and shot through the glass, breaching the doors with gunfire. This may have been a silver lining and probably gave the kids and the staff of the Covenant Presbyterian School time to take appropriate steps to hide and call for help. It was a Monday, March 27th, and it started like every other Monday for the last 14 years for Mike Hill, the custodian for the Covenant Presbyterian Church and K-6 private school. He smiled his larger-than-life smile and waved as the kids walked in, and began his day preparing to carry his vacuum cleaner up the sanctuary like he had done countless Mondays before. His thoughts could have been on one of his 7 children, or maybe his 14 grandchildren. He loved to cook and spend time with family, so he may have been thinking about what he planned to cook for dinner when the shots reverberated through the quiet of the day, shattering the glass door. They called him Big Mike, and he was a force to be reckoned with. But Big Mike would be the first of the 6 to fall. Katherine Koonce was on a Zoom call in her office when she first heard the shots and the breaking glass. She recognized it immediately. She had been a big advocate of mass shooter training and knew her staff was equipped to deal with anything that threatened her campus. She quickly dropped from the call, but she didn't hide and she didn't run. She walked out and met the shooter in the hallway, where it's believed that she attempted to engage the shooter directly. It was in her nature to be steadfast and be a protector of children. Covey, on the other hand, the unofficial school mascot that affectionately greeted the children daily, remained safely behind in her office. Covey would never again see Katherine. She would be the second to fall. It is unknown where the shooter encountered Cindy Peake, the governor's wife's best friend, but those who knew the substitute teacher knew that she had a passion for teaching and caring for children. Her last thoughts were most likely about her own 3 kids and her husband Chris, who would later state that he knew without a shadow of a doubt that Cindy died protecting the children. The 3 children, who started their day as normal 9-year-old children often do, with a joyous spirit to learn and an innocence that would be memorialized in them for forever at such a young age, could never understand how tragedy would devastate the community in the minutes, hours, and days to come. All 3 were pronounced dead on arrival, as they arrived at the hospital in ambulances. The doctors helpless, the damage catastrophic. Simultaneously, on the other side of town, Officer Rex Engelbert was finishing his coffee and preparing to finish some paperwork. The least exciting part of the job that he so loved. Just across town, Detective Mike Caluso and Sergeant Mathis had just started their shift when the call came across the radio. Officer Rex Engelbert, at this point, was heading to the main station to handle some business when the call came through. Officer Rex had heard calls like this before, and although many had proven to be false alarms, this one kind of felt different to him. And it just so happened, by coincidence or miraculous intervention, that he was really close to the school and was the first on scene. Officer Rex could hear gunfire. A staff member who had actually made it out of the building handed him a key and pointed him to the entry.
Give me 3! Let's get 3!
Shouted to the random police officers who were showing up. Officer Rex and Detective Caluso both breached the door, but at different sides of the building. but
Let's
they would be
go!
united on the second floor.
Go.
They described the smoke in the halls as they made their way towards the gunfire, stinging their eyes. Many of the police officers carried non-tactical weapons and had failed to grab body armor, entering the school with no protection from the shooter's weapons. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air. It probably felt unnatural for that smell to be present in the school. The blaring of the fire alarm, that really made it hard when they were on the second floor to communicate, so it made communication that much more critical. Was the shooter reloading? Officer Rex's training kicked in, and he fired the first 4 shots. Detective Caluso, he fired an additional 4 shots.
Watch out. Stop moving! Stop moving!
Audrey's last moments would be captured on body cam footage. She would leave 6 people dead in her wake. Her mother would later say, "I believe I lost my daughter today."